It's Khalid Malik's Morning Jam on 10:11 on a Thursday. The studio is abuzz this morning. COP26, the 26th conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that is taking place right now in Glasgow. And FM91 every Monday and Thursday here on the Morning Jam. We are taking this seriously here on FM91 because it requires action, and it requires action now. As Greta Thunberg said, this is not a drill. This is code red for planet Earth. Let me introduce my guests. So excited to have them on. I'd like to invite and say hello to Yasir, Darya, who's our partner through and through. We've got Durlabh Ashok, who's in Glasgow. Hopefully he's up when we get in touch with him. We've also got joining us, President and CEO of Engro Corp, Ghayas Khan Saab is here. We've also got Senior Manager, Climate and Energy Program, WWF Pakistan, Ms. Nazifa. But, good morning, everybody. Hello, just a little hi. Where are your voices? Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Put your hands together. By the way, they can't put their hands together because they've got the phones. Welcome to this very special broadcast. Yasir, a bit of a mini sort of COP26 happening here. Yeah. What do you think? Why is that happening?
Because there's a real COP happening in Glasgow. So we thought we'd have a mini one.
No, go on.
Because, at the global level, we are talking about big business, big NGOs, community leaders, and youth. Yeah. All having a conversation about climate change and what it means for us.
Today is day 4. I think day 4 of the conference. I believe today is day 4. Nazifa is acknowledging it is day 4. The finance ministers have come out yesterday and said, well, how are we going to fund this thing? If we want to do this, how are we going to do it? And so I go to Ghayas this morning. Thank you for joining us, Ghayas. Pleasure having you here. We talk about businesses and businesses taking responsibility. It's always been a question that's been raised. We talk about climate change. We talk about taking action. I remember this was many, many years ago when CFCs were the thing, right? And they were like, we need to reduce CFCs, and we had businesses and everyone from the community come and say, okay, we'll reduce CFCs, and you started getting appliances that said, no CFCs and so on. And here we are in a different age, and probably the most important conference happening right now in Glasgow. If we come home, right here in Pakistan, and we come home to Engro, how is Engro contributing to climate responsibility?
Well, Khalid, first of all, it's wonderful to be here at your show, and greetings to all the listeners and all the viewers from Engro. You see, climate responsibility now is at the heart of our business strategy. And why is that so? We have a desire to be globally competitive in any business that we go into. And if the desire is to be globally competitive, we have to embrace the global realities and what is happening to our environment. And while we can say that where we are is because of what the developed world did in the last few decades in terms of their own development and using coal to sort of fuel that development, and we are taking the brunt of it. But at the end of the day, Pakistan is the 5th most vulnerable country to climate change. So we can't walk away from this problem. So for Engro, it is right at the heart of our future strategy. We are obviously very mindful of the businesses that we are in currently, but moving forward, we've already taken a lot of initiatives in a lot of our businesses, but overall at the portfolio level, we are in a learning phase this year. We held the Engro Sustainability Week earlier this quarter, where we invited experts from around the world. We have looked at our carbon footprint. We have looked at our water usage. We are studying plastic circularity, and early in the next quarter, we're going to come out with a comprehensive strategy for the next decade and a half of how we are going to reduce our carbon emission and hopefully get to net zero. And in terms of how this will be done, it will be a mix of how we develop our future businesses. So that's very clear. Any new business that we're going to invest in, we're going to be very clear about our carbon footprint and how we're going to completely negate it. How are we going to offset the carbon emissions of our existing businesses, and possibly in the future, how are we going to reallocate capital from some of those businesses? So this path is going to be very, very clearly laid out, and for us, it's not a choice anymore. If we want to be globally competitive, then embrace the global problems.
That's key. isn't it? It's not a choice anymore. It's got to be done. You talked about sustainability. You talked about net zero. Are there sustainability metrics in place?
Absolutely. So we are following globally acceptable matrices in terms of. Very recently, we signed an agreement at the World Economic Forum. In fact, we were the only company in Pakistan to sign that, where we have embraced the matrices which are being used around the world. It's stakeholder matrices which are being used, and we've made a pledge to that, and we make it public. We're not going to hide whatever emissions we are doing in terms of carbon, and we make it public in all our reports, and we intend to do so.
Ms. Naseeba Bhatt, who is from WWF Pakistan, joins us also. As I said, the studio is abuzz today. The globe is abuzz today. All eyes and ears at the conference that is happening in Glasgow right now. Obviously, Pakistan is there. There's a lot of noise at the moment. Are Pakistan's concerns being communicated at the conference?
Yes, they have. On the 1st of November, I think Malik Amin Aslam, the advisor to Prime Minister, he actually declared the recent NDCs, and there was a lot of conversation about our commitments and our recent commitment to reductions of greenhouse gas emissions, which is huge and which is quite ambitious as well. And there has been a huge hue and cry about what Pakistan is doing about it, and there has been a lot of work, especially after the announcement of the Prime Minister's initiative of the Billion Tree Tsunami, which is a plantation drive throughout the country. And also I think an important project that I would like to highlight here is the Recharge Pakistan, which is the floodplain management program, which is a national level program which was announced and declared at the COP as well. So there was a lot of hype about that in the network as well, and at the COP.
There was something that I read earlier, which is trying to find. Here it is. So it was unveiled, the Ecosystem Restorative Initiative.
Yes.
Is that what you're alluding to?
It's exactly that one. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
So it's about, it's about water conservation primarily, and the conservation of the Indus Delta.
Okay. Yeah. That's happened, and that was unveiled in Glasgow. I think it was yesterday. I think it was unveiled. On Wednesday. We talk about COP26, and we talk about the Globe Conference, 160 countries. And I keep reading that the venues are packed and people are coming out in numbers. Why is it so important to us in our part of the world, this conference?
Okay, so there are two things. One is, like Yasir said, that we are one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of the effects of climate change on nature and on people. So we are potentially looking at the Indus River starting to dry up, which it already has.
Right.
The sea going, imagine the sea going up to the Punjab border. That can happen and will happen in the year 2100. Okay. But at the moment, we are looking at hot temperatures. We're looking at inequality extending itself like within Karachi. So the people who have the means will be fine, but the rest of the city will actually basically be below any proper living standards.
Riaz Saab joins us here as you transition from coal to renewables in the future. And can I just say before we even get to the question, just off what I saw was quite amazing. I saw passion in all three of you, and this wasn't just a play of words, but this goes deeper. And so if it means anything, it means that there is a lot. There is that light at the end of the tunnel. I'm so glad that you're here and you're passionate about this. Is Engro measuring emissions in a way which is based on independent science and is also public as you transition from this coal to renewables in the future?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, Khalid, we are and we are tracking our carbon emissions. We are tracking our water usage, and then we are also doing our bit as far as plastic waste management is concerned. But the first two are obviously of prime importance to us. We are being very, very transparent about it. And as I mentioned earlier, that this year we're doing a lot of research internally, as well as talking to a lot of global experts, because do remember that this particular transition is new to everyone. No one is an expert on this. It's anywhere in the world, right? They're large multi-billion-dollar conglomerates who haven't been able to figure this out because it has such high implications on the economy. It's because we have not used our natural resources for decades. So Thar coal is a very good example, right? It is going to produce electricity at 11 rupees per kilowatt hour as compared to 15, which is the country's average, from a local fuel. And you know how important it is for us to save dollars. So that economic reality cannot be lost. And hence, when it comes to this transition from dirty fuels to clean fuels, it has to be looked at from a local perspective, from a global perspective, where you want to reach out to these developed countries to help us through this transition. We should not sit here and say that this is not our problem. It is our problem. But the developed countries should also realize that they need to help us go through this transition, whether it's market access for our businesses, whether it's cheap financing or technology transfer. So
do you see that happening though? Is it?
It's happening. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but COP26 was planning on giving about $100 billion in cheap financing to developed countries starting from 2020. But I don't think we're going to get to that number till 2023, so it's a bit slow.
Apparently Bezos has pledged $2 billion. Recently, that's true. From WWF's perspective, as you look into the conference, are there some key points that you're looking at that that they're hoping that will be addressed and are being addressed?
I think the most important is decarbonization, because that's right now being discussed, and no offense with that. So yes, decarbonization is the focus at the moment of the global parties, the heads of states, and a lot of stakeholders, which involves the energy producing companies as well. And about 1,000 companies, have committed to going decarbonized in their processes, in production of energy, reduction of fossil fuels, because I think it's and the 100 billion that you're talking about had to be dispersed, earlier, but I'm afraid that we don't see it happening till the 2023. So, but I think this is fossil fuels elimination, phasing out of coal, yes, and a lot of transitioning into the renewable energy. That is something that we're focusing on, and from the WWF perspective, I think we're focusing on science-based targets, so that every company, all the businesses should ensure and target that they have targets set up and finding innovative solutions through nature. So nature-based solutions is the key. That is why businesses in Pakistan are also moving towards carbon sequestration, innovative solutions that they can sort of work on in order to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions.
Yasir, Durlabh is in Glasgow right now. So what we'll do is he's in the thick of it, and he knows what's happening. And especially, I'm curious as to what the finance ministers come up, because they met yesterday, I think it was. And if you were there, well, just out of the blue, what do you have? How would they do this? How do we fund this?
Look, I think it's very clear cut to me. If I was representing Pakistan, I'd look at my biggest challenges, and my biggest challenge would be the balance of payment issue that we run into, where our exports are not increasing at the same pace as our imports, and we need to do whatever we can to increase our export and reduce our imports, right? So I would put that challenge up front and say that, okay, we are willing to do our part as far as helping the environment is concerned. We will do whatever needs to be done in terms of our own energy mix, but give us market access. Give preferential access to those manufacturers out of Pakistan who are following best practice. Give them preferential access. So it solves for our economy, but then it solves for their part of the problem as well. And secondly, ask for financing. Look, I'll say this again. First world countries are first world countries because they have grown, they have industrialized on the back of dirty fuel. And now that they're there, they need to do their part in helping the transition of developing countries. So while we don't want to walk away from the problem and say, hey, this is not our issue, it is our issue. We're the fifth most vulnerable country to climate change. But, ask for, do the right bargain, do the right negotiation. Don't just embrace whatever is happening in the world without looking at your own economic realities. I've
got a question that's been put out. Arkam, thanks very much. Being a Pakistani, it's open to any one of you. I believe all of the population concerned so the population is concerned with what do we get out of it as public? What benefits would accrue to us, and how long would all this take to reap those benefits? I believe our population needs to understand this. Who'd like to...
All of us.
Go. Yasir, you want to start?
Okay. So for any citizen of Pakistan, it is their right to have a clean environment.
Right.
This is a court case, Shelazia versus Pakistan or Punjab. I forget. But the case was about putting up an electric transformer and set up near houses. And the Supreme Court said, if the waves and being close in close proximity of something which is destructive of life, basically. So, in that case, we have to be on the side of life, and not toxic chemicals and things like that. Okay. So, clean air is one. Clean water for everyone. Okay. Now, we're not even talking about education, which is a higher level thing. We're talking about the very basic thing that we're doing every second. Clean air, clean water. These are not negotiable.
Did you want to add to that?
As I can't agree more. These are fundamental human rights that every Pakistani is entitled to. And then, of course, the impact that it'll have on the economy, and then the subsequent impact on our education, on our healthcare. So it is very much going to impact the lives of people. I mean, it was heartbreaking to read the other day in one of the newspapers about the state in Lahore. It was declared as the most polluted city in the world. I mean, so that was hurtful.
Sad,
right? It's very sad, and I think it's very clear for the citizens of Pakistan to realize that this is where we are. We actually have the most polluted city in the world.
And Nazifa?
I think it's everybody's responsibility, because everybody has a carbon footprint. So it's not only the businesses who have to contribute or the heads of state, but it's also the citizens who need to sort of cut down their emissions on their regular basis in their daily lives, while using their cars, while using their gases, the fuels that they're using, while picking and choosing on their daily food choices. So I think that's also something that people should look at and realize.
We talk about the COP26 and how the world is there right now, and the eyes are there right now, and as a result, we are talking about it here in Pakistan, and businesses are talking about it in Pakistan. And when we talk about here in Pakistan, we can't get away from plastics. It's everyday life. Oh, we've got him now? Oh, no, we've got to cut him. What is the solution? At a street level, we see it. At a nano level, we see it. I mean, are we done with this, or we go down? What is the solution?
So, Khalid, first thing we need to realize is that it's not plastics which are the problem. It's the plastic waste management which is the problem.
Okay.
So, first of all, we've got to embrace and realize the tremendous value this material adds to our lives.
Okay.
World without plastics will be a very difficult and a different world. Air travel is not going to be as cheap as it is today.
We've also got, I think Durlabh is now online. Good morning, Durlabh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you a lot. Thanks, finally.
Finally. Durlabh Ashok in Glasgow right now. How's Glasgow? What's the vibe? Durlabh, what's the vibe in Glasgow?
Usually this time around it's a bit cold and damp, but for the last 2 days we have seen sunshine, and it's been very pleasant here.
Now was it yesterday that the finance ministers met? What was that like, and what came of that yesterday?
Right, yes. Yesterday was all about finance. Finance was the big topic for yesterday. So in terms of talking about what Pakistan did yesterday, it was quite interesting to see Pakistan launch its ecosystem restoration initiative, ESRI basically. So what Pakistan is doing with that is they're basically saying, okay, under the National Disaster Risk Management Fund, what they're going to do is they're going to basically restore the planting. They're planting like 188 million trees or something like that. We are providing like 80,000 green jobs under this new initiative. They are working to restore forests. So that was something that was pretty big from the when it comes to the Pakistan perspective. Also quite interesting to see coming out of Glasgow and COP26 yesterday was that the people, like there are like 190 something like countries and organizations have pledged to just phase out like coal-fired power plants. So that was also
to phase out coal power plants. Is that what you said?
Yeah, okay. phase out coal-fired power plants. Because as you know, like one of the main agenda for this year COP has been to keep the global rise in temperature under 2 degrees. So before the projection was saying, okay, we might not able to hit it because initial projection, if we had like business as usual, it would have been like around 3 degrees, somewhere around that. But now, according to latest projections, we are just below 2 degrees, so 1.9 according to some estimate. It's not good for a lot of different countries because currently we are at 1.1 and we have been seeing quite a bit of disastrous effect all over the world. So these were like one of the biggest announcements coming out of Glasgow.
I'm curious if any of you would like to ask Durlabh a question. Nazifa, do you have a question for him? Would you like to ask? No, I have a question for Durlabh. Pakistan's initiative that was announced yesterday, the ESR, how was that taken by other delegates and the people that were present?
Yep. So historically speaking, obviously Pakistan hasn't really contributed to greenhouse gases emissions yet. So also we have some financial and resources issues, but coming like Pakistan really punched above its weight this time around because again committing to such an ambitious plan was taken positively. But then again we have funding issues, so there's World Bank coming in as well. I think there's some kind of funding in place. So I think it's really exciting to see that Pakistan is leading, at least in some areas when it comes to okay, what we can do like planting trees. It's not that hard. But what's really exciting is in terms of green jobs, they're also managing 60 protected areas and giving employment to quite a bit of people that are basically watching those areas, making sure there's no illegal cutting going on, all sort of activities. So that was something that was taken really in a positive light.
And there are also some news of pledges from Norway, Japan, and Australia as well. Any news on that?
I'm not exactly sure. You might be talking about the methane one because that was something again that US led. What basically said that we are cutting down our methane emissions by 30% by next 10 years. Pakistan also signed up on that. So that's also very interesting and very exciting to see because as you know, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, but methane is quite a bit more powerful compared to regular old carbon, as we like to say it. But then again, it's really exciting to see where the world is heading, and we expect some great announcements coming in today and as we move forward.
Yasir, you want to ask Durlabh something?
Yes, Durlabh, please tell us about the Pakistan delegation from the Standing Committee on Climate Change of the National Assembly. What they've been up to.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to shadow them yet, but today is basically my plan to reach out to them at the Pakistani Pavilion because I was talking to some journalists back home as well yesterday. So yesterday I had some speaking engagement, so I was not really at the COP. I was there for like 4 hours maximum out of the entire day because I had to travel from the venue. It's a little bit hard to get into like at least an hour to get past security and everything and checks and all that out there. So I'm not exactly sure what the Pakistani delegation are doing. But as you probably must have heard that Imran Khan was expected to fly in for the World Leaders Summit on 1st and 2nd, but unfortunately he backed out due to some domestic concern. I think that's what he mentioned. But the other ministers and are present in the Pakistan delegation, so they are leading the charge currently there.
Thanks very much, Durlabh. We'll touch base again next week. Durlabh Ashok, a youth climate leader. Thanks so much, all the way from Glasgow, Scotland. How can climate finance help our transition to green technologies?
It's going to play a very integral role, and I'm going to add something to it. Being a Pakistani and of course being a developing country, and something that an area where we have lagged behind is our exports. So market access and green financing, I think, are the two things that we should negotiate for from the developing countries, because this transition is going to be expensive. It's going to require a lot of reskilling of workers, and just in the break we were talking about the potential of electric vehicles, but it will have a dramatic impact on that entire ecosystem. There are about 1 million jobs that could potentially get displaced, and what is our plan for that?
Sorry, go on, I'll let you finish first.
So clearly this transition is going to be expensive, and hence it needs to be promoted in developing countries like Pakistan through initiatives of easier or green financing and market access for the businesses who adopt the right practices. I think they need to be incentivized, and the way to incentivize them is to give them better access in those developed markets. And for a country like Pakistan, it becomes very, very obvious, because increasing our exports is perhaps the biggest challenge that our country has faced over decades. Why do you think we keep running back to the IMF? It's because we just don't export enough. And so it has to come together. The economic and the environmental concerns, they need to be looked at together.
Nazifa, what are you expecting, or what should corporations be doing at this point in climate terms?
Okay, so a lot of corporations in Pakistan, both local and the MNCs, both have targets now. They're realizing the importance of environment and sustainability. So I'd agree with Riaz that, businesses and environment should go hand in hand, and there are solutions available where they both overlap, and technologies that are environmentally friendly can be adopted. But I think setting up the targets, that's the first thing that every company is doing. Most of the companies are doing, but the companies who aren't, they need to set up their targets. They need to monitor their processes and to sort of ensure that what are the practices that are to be adopted in order to cut down the greenhouse gas emissions from their processes and manufacturing or their interventions in the...
Let's go to the electric vehicle just for a moment, and I come at this from a very layman's point of view, from a very outside sort of looking in kind of perspective, as someone who uses transport, etc. And I see electrical buses, and then there's electrical vehicles, charging stations, etc. And just from what we were saying off air, if we could bring that on, and I think to myself, are we going to sustain this as I'm driving my vehicle? That's part of the whole problem. But will we ever get there, or is that not something we shouldn't even be thinking about right now? And that whole play on jobs and so on.
I think eventually we are going to get there, but we have to be careful about this transition. And this is a discussion I was having with a very good friend of mine, who's an auto manufacturer, and I asked him the same question, and he was kind enough to educate me on the subject. And just to share a few things, that typically there are about 15 to 20,000 parts in a traditional vehicle which is assembled. An electric vehicle will be, you can slash it down to maybe 20 or 30. And I'm giving a
obvious difference.
Obvious difference. And that is going to have an implication on the entire ecosystem of part manufacturers, on laborers. So about 1 million jobs could be displaced. So while we are thinking about this transition from traditional vehicles to electric vehicles, we need to have a plan for the transition of the workforce and the impact that it will have on the economy. There's a fair amount of local value addition is done. Do we have the ecosystem to manufacture batteries? Otherwise, we're going to be importing all the electric vehicles. And if we're going to keep a low duty on them, more people will import them. And then what impact will it have on our balance of payment? It's going to worsen it. So environmental considerations with economic realities is, I think, how we need to look at it. Both lenses need to be used. It's not a black and white.
We look at, and as all of you say this, it feels so overwhelming. It feels like there's too much. And so if you were to, cut it down to short, medium, and long term, what is the immediate concern right now, Nazifa?
About
whatever that's happening with COP and so on.
Oh yes, I think there are too many. Right. I think yes, there are too many, and I think I just reiterate on what I said earlier, that green solutions are the solutions, and there are opportunities for every kind of business where they can find alternatives and synergies between to create and to actually environmentally create their projects and their processes and their products also. There are some issues which are, irreplaceable, and, you don't have alternatives like plastics, you don't have alternatives. But for single-use plastics, there are alternatives available. That is something that we can curtail on. Since you mentioned it's one of the biggest challenge after climate change. Plastics is, not only impacting, our lives and, the solid waste on land, but in water also. So, affecting marine life also, getting into our food chains. So I think it's important to sort of, think wisely before we pick up, I think, because there are a lot of elements that we can address, on individual basis as well.
Yasir, finally, what is the call to action here?
Okay, so I think we can allow ourselves to be ambitious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
If we are a developing country, and even on the lower side, why should we stay there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So export-led is the way to go. and we need to make certain transitions, and we need to plan those transitions. So if you're going to fire people from one company, you better make sure you're retraining them for the new company that is taking its place. Okay, so you can micromanage that. Germany has done it. So the labor unions and the Greens have come together on that point. It's doable. Okay. Plastics. Okay. Eventually, plastics. We can't get. Plastics are part of our life. Okay. Now what's going to happen through material science? Okay, material science is molecules, right? Now you're going to start making plastics through different technologies instead of petroleum, which is the case right now. And you're going to move to bioplastics. You're going to innovate how to replace the current plastic with a different formula which comes from nature without damaging it. Okay, so plastics, EVs, electric vehicles. We should try to take a leap, bring everything on electricity. Okay. Allow me to say a bit more. Okay. CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, should be green CPEC. We have the international folks in the Chinese government who have been running the show basically. They've been financing coal for so long. Okay. But the Ministry of Ecology and Environment of China is the watchdog. They're actually going after other departments and shutting down things and making huge changes, because when China commits to something, they really mean it. And there is so much pressure, global pressure on them, that now they have this ministry, which is the Ministry of Climate Change, like our Ministry of Climate Change, and they're policing the other ministries and even down to the provincial level. So I think the Chinese model is a very good model. I won't say in terms of freedom of thought and things, but certainly in economic terms, not to say that we should only do China, but it's a global world. There's Europe and there's other places. We have our neighbors. But CPEC should become green CPEC. Just as BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, China's, there is a strong indications that the whole of it, it is going green. So it's just a couple of announcements, and I think Pakistan should lobby hard to make CPEC green. That's it.
Thank you very much to all our guests. We are out of time. A big thank you to Ghayas Khan Saab, President and CEO of Engro Corp. A big thank you to Nazifa Butt Saiba, Senior Manager, Climate and Energy Program, WWF, Yasir Darya from Darya Labs, and Durlabh Ashok, who is in Glasgow. We'll see you again Mondays. Remember, Mondays and Thursdays, COP26 here on FM 91. We're taking this seriously, and we know that it demands our attention, and therefore we are willing to pay attention and do something about this. Leaving you with some Louis Armstrong. Thank you so much. Ghayas, Nazifa, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow morning. May your news be good news.